Welcome to Shape the Deal. My name is Eddie Benoit. I am your host for Season 2. This season, we'll talk about a very interesting topic, which is public-private partnerships, P3 structures.
Hi, I'm Mayor Stephen L. Reed from the City of Montgomery, Alabama. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I look forward to talking about P3 partnerships throughout the South and throughout the nation.
Welcome to Shape the Deal. Today we have a special episode, but even more so, a special guest here to talk to us about public-private partnerships. That's right, P3 structures throughout the country. But this guest is coming from Montgomery, Alabama. The mayor himself, Stephen Reed, here in our studio, joining us. He's a good friend and a good brother in many ways to me. Also my fraternity brother. Hey man, nice to see you, bro.
Likewise.
You're looking 100% this morning.
I knew where I was coming, so I knew I had to step my game up a little bit.
I wanted to tone it down a little bit. You know, I'm down here in the South, so it's a little sunshine outside. But considering that you are the newly elected president of AMA, which is the African American Mayors Council for this conference, I have to tell you congratulations.
No, thank you.
How do you feel about it?
I feel great. I'm proud to represent the organization, but I'm humbled by the challenge that lies before us right now.
That's good. Well, it was great to see, just to kick off yesterday with Mayor Dickens welcoming all of your mayors in his city, at City Hall. So I know the next couple of days are going to be pretty intense with a lot of meetings and a little bit of entertainment.
Absolutely. Listen, we work hard, we play hard, and then we get back up and do it all over again. But I think it's great to see so many colleagues from around the country who are really trying to improve their communities, trying to close these gaps that we see, these disparity gaps, whether it's wages, health, education, and really adopting best practices from one another, borrowing ideas, testing, initiatives that are working in other cities that similarly impact our communities all around this country.
Well, listen, this is definitely a topic that is everywhere you go. This topic is up for discussion. But I wanted to at least just start for people to get an opportunity to know a little bit more about you. Mayor Reed, of course, you come from a family, with great political background, and this is your second, term as a mayor, and plus you're part of the illustrious organization fraternity of Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
Indeed.
All right. Okay.
Indeed.
And so, tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, born and raised in Montgomery, left the city. Told my parents I was never coming back. Came to Atlanta for college at Morehouse and then went on to Vanderbilt for business school. Worked at American Airlines in between that time. Did management consulting and came back, started a small business before I got into government as a government relations professional, and then went on to work for the lieutenant governor at that time before running for office myself in the countywide post of probate judge in 2012. And found myself not fully satisfied with the change I can make and the impact I could have in that position, and decided to run for mayor of Montgomery, my hometown, in 2019. So it's been quite a journey from saying where I wouldn't be and what I wouldn't do, and coming full circle to where we are now in our second term, or just starting our second term as mayor of the city, which is the capital of Alabama.
Yeah, second term. I mean, there's a lot that you've done over this period of time. Look at me, man. I have no hair and you barely graying.
No, I got more than when I started this job, that's for sure.
Well, listen, second term. What made you run for a second term?
Well, we had unfinished business. We got interrupted in our first 100 days due to the COVID pandemic. We saw then over the next year and a half the challenges and the disparities that impacted all of our community, but certainly along the chasms of economics and, of course, race. Those things came full bear. And I think, what I decided was that it was a lot more that we needed to do policy-wise. There was a lot more that we needed to do politically to make sure that we were doing as well of a job as being the CEO of the city, but also balancing some of the historical challenges that had not only impacted our city for 200 years prior to my being elected, but has impacted this nation for quite so long. So a lot of it was education driven, it was economically driven, and again, it was driven around policies and things that we thought that we can do by leveraging those public-private partnerships along with our vision and values for the city to bring about a better change and better outcomes for our residents.
So it is really difficult to actually really push an agenda like that just in one term. 4 years. I mean, actually, when you look at it, when we look at development cycle for long-term projects, mixed-use projects, they're usually 8 to 10 years, let alone for on an administration standpoint to try to accomplish everything that you would like to accomplish and turn things around in a city within 4 years. So, even 8 years is not enough, but nonetheless. Now, Montgomery, do you have term limits there?
We do not have term limits, so I can serve.
You might go for 12, huh?
Hey, look, I might go longer than that. I was seeing some of the legends of the African American Mayors Association. I kept seeing 20 years and 20 years, and I said, man, do I think I could last that long, or would the people want me that long? But it does say something when you see those folks like Tom Bradley and Coleman Young and Richard Arrington, who had those type of runs as mayor, legendary impacts. But then you see, of course, the Maynard Jacksons and others who were able to set an agenda in 2 terms at that time, carried on by Ambassador Andrew Young here in Atlanta. So for us, it's really about, can we be productive? Are we adding value? Are we making a difference? And then, do the residents of the city appreciate it and want you to come back? I don't want to be one of those ones who's showing the door, as they say. Exactly. So hopefully, whether it's 2 terms or more, I'm out before they want me to be out.
Well, you definitely have a lot of support, not only in your own, city of Montgomery and your state, but a lot of us love you outside the state of Alabama too. So we definitely want to see you succeed. We're proud of what you've been doing and what's on your agenda. And speaking of the agenda, as it relates to the public-private partnership, structures, really trying to galvanize not only your local developers, but also outside developers to come in and be creative. It'd be interesting to hear what are some of the tools that you're using at the city in order to help, deal with some of these, public-private partnership deals that you're seeing every day, and some are related to housing and some are related to commercial. At the end of the day, you still have issues, in a lot of these communities where there's still a lot of racial disparity. And that is, again, a big topic everywhere you go. So tell me, what are you guys doing in Montgomery?
I see public-private partnerships has been integral to progress, in particular in mid-sized cities like Montgomery, where we may not have the corporate base that you have in some other cities. For us to move the initiatives that we want to turn those ideas into implementation, it takes help from the private sector. And in our city, because of the state politics, there's a limited amount of support that we can expect there. So we found that we have to reach out to Washington, D.C. directly, to the Biden-Harris administration, which has been very, very responsive to our needs, specifically the needs of the African-American community and things that we're trying to do there around economics. Very, very important, from Treasury to Commerce to Housing and Urban Development to Department of Transportation. All those things being very, very important. But we know the private sector really helps move things along. So we have tried to make sure that we have the instruments in place now that we didn't have prior to me coming in, to make sure our CDFIs are sound, to make sure that we are maximizing our incentives and our new market tax credits and other initiatives that help draw in development. And one of the things that I found coming into the office that I did not know before taking the position of mayor is how much who you have in that CEO's position can drive development, can drive growth, or can hinder it. And I think sometimes we have to be able to discern who's just trying to manage the status quo and who's trying to change it. And often the public may not be aware of those small tweaks and changes that are needed in order to really drive change. From my standpoint, public-private partnerships are a must for Montgomery. It's a must for us to grow our population. It's a must for us to grow our economy and for us to provide the type of development that we need. Outside of that, we might have slow, steady growth, but we won't have the type of accelerated growth and progress that we have been seeing over the last couple of years under my administration. And we hope that translates to affordable housing. We hope that translates to reskilling initiatives to improve our workforce. We hope that translates over to our ability to grow and scale Black and minority-owned businesses. We want to make sure that they're getting a part of that economic progress, and that means making sure that you're incorporating P3s in a way that other communities have done and learning their best practices and bringing them to the table, bringing outside developers like yourself and others in who have done these things in other markets to our city.
That's really good. I mean, you're definitely really at the forefront of this issue as one of the cities that's being very conscientious through your administration to address these topics and these issues within your communities. Now, I do know, like in Montgomery, you do have, as you mentioned, economic development, okay, and redevelopment. You have some areas where you still have larger concentrations of poverty. And so therefore, of course, P3 structures definitely allow the deconcentration of that poverty and where you can get mixed use developments that can thrive there. But at the same time, you know, some of the legacy residents that are there, whether they're homeowners or just apartment dwellers, they're typically, you know, forced to be displaced. And so when you look at the gentrification, a lot of times people look at that word and they cringe. It's a bad word. Me as a developer, I look at it as great opportunity when it's done right, with the right developer, with the right partnership structure with municipality and any other nonprofits that can come in and help from a community outreach and engagement standpoint. So for you, how do you see that working in a smaller, you know, city, mid-sized city like Montgomery, and that has been very traditional in ways? There's been very dividing lines between wealth and non-wealth in that city. How do you, you know, help developers, you know, come in and overcome the barriers related to gentrification and redevelopment?
Well, I want first developers and investors that are outside Montgomery to know we're open for business. The old way of doing things in our city does not matter anymore. We want to have a new vision, and we've incorporated a new vision since 2019 and a new approach to growth and development, and making sure that anyone who wants to invest in the city of Montgomery, who wants to partner with us, we're welcome and open to doing just that. And I believe that when you have developers that share your vision and values, it's very easy to address things around gentrification. It's very easy to address things around housing affordability because we have those conversations early on. And so we respect the developers' drive to bring about a positive bottom line to their deal. But we also want those developers to understand that for those longtime residents who have been there through the trials and tribulations of a particular community, they should not be displaced because now it has become a focus and a priority, be it from the private sector or the public sector. And I agree with you. I think with, you know, like-minded policies, you can have both. You can have that progress, you can have that profit without displaying those long-time residents who have not been able to move, who have not been able, because of affordability, to relocate. So when the neighborhood kind of swings back, we want those people to understand and to benefit in that. And so we look for ideas, ordinances that we can implement, things that we can put in our memorandums of understanding, as well as maybe initiatives we can bring in through state and federal partners, as well as the private sector, to help us drive a level of equality that is needed when it comes to developing and planning these areas. Final thing I'll say on this is we have created a one-stop shop with our permitting, planning, and inspections department. So,
That's music to my ears.
well, listen, hey, that's great. I hope it resonates with you and other developers because we want to make it simple, and we reduced those steps that we were taking, which is about 25, down to 6, and there are further steps that we have to even reduce that, so that we make doing business easy, profitable, and again, we're transparent in what we're trying to do with our planning and with our implementation. And I think having not only that, but changing some of our departmental structure, bringing on now a housing department within the city, which we did not have, incorporating that under our economic development division is significant for us because it allows all of those interdepartmental conversations now that we're being had in silos to be had across the board. That helps us, it helps the developer, and it helps our residents who we're trying to serve.
That's great. That's great. That whole permitting process, for developers like us, it's a game changer. I mean, it in so many different ways, not only from a time standpoint as it relates to the life cycle of the pre-development process, but also just the monies that we have at risk and not having the certainty as to when we could actually pull permits and close, do the financial closing of that deal and break ground. So that is, again, from a thought leadership and forward thinking and change management, that's major. I mean, it's as it relates to stimulating development in your city. And for any other mayor, out here that may have a very cumbersome, permitting process, that I hope they could take notes of that and try to figure out how they can adopt that one-stop shop, process. Any major projects that you guys are working on right now that you think would be more of a flagship?
Absolutely. We've got a couple. One is with the Conservation Fund that's working to redevelop the historic site from the settlement of Montgomery Voting Rights March in 1965. It's at the City of St. Jude. They are the largest landowner in the country, and they are working with us right out of Atlanta in a P3 initiative. We also have several sites and parcels that are available along this same civil rights trail that are available for development, upwards of about 85 parcels of land that we want to do mixed use housing. We want to bring workforce housing, but also market rate housing to, again, a historic trail that has been overlooked for decades. And we believe by reinvesting in our core, we'll see the positive results from that. And then finally, Centennial Hill, a major neighborhood adjacent to the oldest HBCU in the state of Alabama, Alabama State University, where many of these civil rights leaders lived, working to capture more parcels that have been left blighted for development to come in again with different housing initiatives and structures, because we see, again, that investment in the urban core is sending a message to not only our residents, but to those outside the city, that we know a city is only as healthy as its heartbeat. And that is a centerpiece of it. So we want to make sure that we do that. We've got some great stars, and then we've got some other opportunities out there that we're looking at to close very soon with other programs like purpose-built communities and a few others that are very, very interested in our city, because we're going out selling the city, we're going out talking about our vision and our values, and in turn we're seeing those organizations come back with us with ideas and interests. So we welcome more from developers like yourself, from your circle, to know that the Montgomery of yesterday is gone, and we're now talking about a Montgomery for tomorrow.
Montgomery for tomorrow. I love it. I hope, some of my colleagues at the Benoit Group are watching this show so they can make sure they can take a trip down to Montgomery and look at some of these development opportunities.
Absolutely.
You mentioned purpose-built communities. We know what is done for Atlanta at East Lake, totally transformed that entire community, and with signature golf course there, and it's just been phenomenal for the east side of Atlanta. So I'd like to wrap up and just say, what would you say, Mayor, to developers, not only in the state of Alabama and Montgomery, but also throughout the country, who are interested in coming to Montgomery, or who don't know about the Montgomery of today, or who only remember the Montgomery of yesterday? Because I also have experiences of the Montgomery of yesterday. And so what would you leave with, with the audience here?
Well, yeah, thank you, Warren, for the opportunity. But I would share with developers like yourself and investors that we are truly a community that's looking forward. We don't believe that we can move forward by looking in the rear view. We got to look through the windshield about what is ahead of us. And that means bringing in subject matter experts that are sensitive to the history of Montgomery, but also understand the future potential of the city, and can bring with them ideas and initiatives that maybe they've done in other markets similar to Montgomery, or those that are different. Because, from our standpoint, we're open to new ideas, we're open to new ways of doing things. That's from the city, that's from our housing authority, that's from our financial institutions, that's from our real estate development leaders in our city. We know that we want to grow the population, we want to grow the attractiveness of the city, and ultimately we want to grow that economy, because that provides more chances for our residents and those that we want to come back. You know, we're seeing this reverse migration to the south, and of course, most people are going to Atlanta and other large cities. Well, as a mid-sized city, we want to let people know that there's tremendous opportunity, and there's proximity to the decision makers. There's proximity to getting the things done that you need to get done with a phone call or a cup of coffee or just a text message. All of those things are in play, and we want to make sure that those who aren't familiar with Montgomery and where we are right now understand that we want to do business. We want to be not only business friendly, we want to be business positive. And we appreciate those things, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that things work for those private investors and developers as much as we can as the residents that we're serving each and every day.
That's great. Well, everybody, you've heard it from the leader himself, the mayor, Stephen Reed. Great leader, not only for his own city, but also now leading AMA, African American, Mayors, Council, and the incoming president sworn in yesterday or today. And so basically, he wears many hats and very well, recognized, by his peers throughout the entire country. Proud to call you a friend, but also be my frat brother.
Absolutely.
All right? Thank you. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today for this episode on Shape the Deal. You received some great insights and information about development opportunities in the city of Montgomery, Alabama, from the mayor himself. This is an opportunity potentially for you to shape your own deal down there. Lots of land, lots of incentives. So stay tuned for our next episode on Shape the Deal.